Hi again. Welcome to Spread Nesson's sports betting football picks podcast. Nesson.com's Mike Cole here, joined once again and as always by Ricky Doyle. Ricky, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Mike?
Vibes are through the roof right now. It is.
There's a lot going on in Watertown, Massachusetts right now.
We are all feeling it today. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on in the company. A lot.
Food truck?
It's a lot.
Dogs?
Yeah. Did you...
Canines?
Yes, yeah, a lot of it. A lot. I'm just processing it as you mention it. It's a lot. I like dogs. People hog the dogs though. That is my complaint about when the dogs come to our company and to our place of work and we get a chance.
We're no strangers to animals either. We had the goats a few months back. That was like up the street though. That wasn't actually on the premises.
Yeah, this is legit. Like they were doing. This is something little. They were doing some pregame stuff.
Yeah,
I think we were doing a couple things with the MSPCA. Go adopt. It's the best. I wanted to take all those dogs home with me.
I know.
But
I wish we weren't so busy. Roll around with them.
I know. Well, that's like I said, people hogging them. But anyway, I suggest, or I just kind of throw it out there, like an office dog. I think that would be kind of cool.
Be nice. Yeah. I would like to incorporate a dog or just animal presence in general on this show a little more frequently if we could.
Yeah.
Maybe make some picks centered around them.
Yeah. Maybe. I
pull like the World Cup. There was the octopus.
Yeah,
there.
that's the. I mean, if you want to get in, if you want to do the legwork on that, I'm open to it. I suppose.
It's better than anything else I'm doing.
I'm a very limited. I love the animals that I love, but I can take it or leave it with a bunch of the other ones. So,
yeah.
If you, like I said, dogs kind of hit us off. I went to the zoo a while back. A couple weeks ago.
So you hate animals, but you went to the zoo.
Well, I have a 3.5-year-old. You gotta find something to do until it's nap time. And gorillas, I'm kind of in on primates. I think I'm gonna do a deep dive on like monkeys, chimps, gorillas. I think it's super interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna ask you what is your favorite just zoo animal?
It's probably the gorillas.
The gorillas.
It's odd. They're cool. They're like humans, but they're probably smarter and just less emotional baggage, which is kind of sick.
Yeah.
They could probably pick football games better than we can. By the way, we're going to get to our AFC picks at some point here as we continue
today,
our rolling NFL preview.
Go back and listen to the NFC, too, if you want.
Yeah, that's a high recommendation. We got to get you in and out of here because you're going on vacation here. So we got to, this is one of your last responsibilities
delayed
before.
Vacation, kind of.
Oh, is that so?
I've had some stuff added for tomorrow. So.
Okay. Well, that's at a certain point, that's to you, bro.
I'll be out next week.
Yeah. So we have I think I've squared up what we have for next week. So I don't want to give that away.
No, don't give that away.
I think we're good.
Surprise treat though.
Yeah, we'll have
addition by subtraction too. You get me out of here.
Fill in guest next week. Wally pipped by somebody who may have been Wally pipped to begin with. I don't know. So
that's true.
Yeah. All right. Anything leftover takes? Anything else that you're ruminating on here? Anything?
No. Did you get the food truck though?
I had like 2 bites. I brought my own lunch. I
was surprised to see you down at the food truck, Mike. You're not a big food truck guy.
I like these guys because my wife and I watch a lot of Food Network, and they were the Paisani. I mean, free ad, whatever.
Yeah.
They were on one of the food truck race shows that's on Food Network. My wife and I watch, so I feel familiar. I feel like I have to support them. The food is delicious.
That was excellent.
I only had a couple bites. I brought my own lunch today, as I do like every day. I'll bring this one home for my wife, give it to her. So maybe my son.
You probably could have got 2 meals out of it too. There's a lot of it.
That was huge too. I had a couple bites. It was delicious,
sandwich.
but it's a heavy box.
Oh, yeah.
I want to start feeding it. Try to give it to the dogs.
If productivity goes down in the second half of today,
that's the other thing, dude. There's a lot of Logie people here right now. It's gonna be naps.
This is a ticking time bomb.
The fact that there's a Red Sox game going on right now too. People are just gonna be falling asleep left and right. All right, so yeah, nothing else to get to. Weather. The weather. It's fall. It feels like fall.
It is. Yeah, it is a little fall in the air.
Pool hasn't been fixed. We're just struggling to make it get get it across the finish line here for summer. But the AFC is up here this week for us. We're gonna do the same thing we did last week: 3-unit, 2-unit, 1-unit plays. Basically, where you and I are just like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just do the thing that we do until somebody tells us not to. So,
I mean, what we wanted to avoid was going just division by division.
There's nothing very more painful than that.
We're gonna touch on every division here at some point, but I just didn't want to do it in a very regimented way. I feel like this is a nice way to reintroduce what it is that we typically do throughout the course of this season.
I agree. I might have asked you this last week. Do you prefer the AFC or the NFC?
As in, like,
I guess
I'll tell you what.
Going into 2024, what are you?
The AFC, in my opinion, is much more difficult to pin down.
Yeah,
like, I felt pretty good going division by division last week. Like, before the show, it felt very chalky. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a clear favorite in at least 3 of those 4 NFC divisions. I think you can make a strong case for a lot of AFC teams.
There's some BSDs in this conference. I think it's the name power is. I think the NFC is going to be where the AFC, like 3 or 4 years from now, the NFC is going to be where the AFC is right now.
It's the cyclical. AFC quarterbacks.
That's what I'm saying. Is like you start projecting like the NFC. Like if Caleb Williams is legit, if Jaden Daniels is legit, it's going to be like those 2, Jordan Love. Whoever we're forgetting. So, like I said, it's all cyclical, but I think the AFC is still probably where all the big stuff gets decided this year. So let's just get into it. What's your 3-unit play for the AFC in 2024?
So I'm going to start out west in the AFC West. I'm going to go Chiefs, Chargers, 1-2 exact in the AFC West.
Okay. So
this is plus 140 odds at DraftKings. Basically, this bet is suggesting that the Chargers will improve, right? Like that's basically the bet.
Technically, yes.
So,
who finished second in the division last year?
Raiders.
I could easily look that up. That's insane, though.
Right? Yeah, it had to have been.
Yeah,
they came on strong at the end.
Yeah,
but again, I mean,
they were bad though.
That division is Chiefs and everybody else. Yep. So this is a bet on the Chargers placing ahead of the Raiders and the Broncos, who I don't think either of those teams did anything really to improve. Whereas the Chargers,
I couldn't think of the other team in the division for a second. There.
Like this is in their improvements. I don't necessarily want to use the playoffs as the determining factor. So like the Chargers to make the playoffs is plus 110. You get a little extra value here. So basically, I would pose the question: like, would you rather bet the Chargers plus 110 to make the playoffs, or plus 140 to finish second in the AFC West? Like that seems like a no-brainer to me. If we're assuming that Kansas City is going to win that division,
I guess another way to say that, like, I think the only thing that puts this bet in jeopardy is the Chargers winning the division outright.
Which I don't know if I'm ready to go there just yet.
I feel like that's why I think
Kansas City's still
sensible use of 3 units
with a stranglehold on the division. I mean, they've won. Not only have they been dominating the division, winning the division, but they've won the division by an average of 4 games over the last 5 years. It really hasn't been close since like 2018.
Yeah, they won it only by 3 last year.
So, I mean, look, the Chargers 5-12 last year. Lost a lot of notable names on paper. Like if you're looking at this from a fantasy standpoint, it's
like Mike Williams,
Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, guys like that. But I mean, look, this team needed an identity shakeup as it was. You brought in the head coach. Now you got the 2 most important factors working in your favor. You got Jim Harbaugh linking up with Justin Herbert. So that alone, I think, gives you a pretty solid floor in this division. And then I like drafting Joe Alt. I think you add Ladd McConkey as a new pass catcher. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins should be serviceable in the backfield. Talent on the defensive side isn't an issue. It's more so just putting it all together.
Oh, staying healthy,
that too. I don't know. So last year, look, 3-8 in games decided by 7 points or fewer. Went down to the wire against Miami, Buffalo, Dallas, Detroit, Green Bay. I mean, that's the Chargers thing, right? They lose those close games. That's where I think you see the Harbaugh effect.
It's like coaching or special teams. And if you can,
I just think they're better positioned now than maybe previous years. And there's a little bit of like post-hype sleeper to them, too. So I think they're going to be better. I don't know. Like, I don't know if they make the playoffs. I ultimately think they might. But again, you're getting better value at the plus 140 here.
They also went 0-5 down the stretch when it was
over.
Yeah, and it was ugly. Yeah, they, like you said, when they went 5-12, the Raiders and Broncos both went 8-9. I guess maybe the Broncos could be a thing here. I don't know if we want to touch on them at all.
With either of those teams, I think the floor is so low.
Floor is very low.
Yeah.
I don't like the Raiders. We'll talk about the Patriots in a little bit. I think the Raiders are in the running for worst team in football. Agree, yeah. Like I think there's some fool's gold in what happened last year at the end of the year. That's the other thing too with the Chargers. They went 1-5 in the division, so they took their licks from every which way across the division. So I got to imagine that's going to improve a little bit too.
Obviously, the division largely plays into this, but second easiest schedule in the NFL this year, according to Sharp Football Analysis. Falcons, I think, have like the easiest by a mile. But yeah, that basically takes into account projected win totals in Vegas for this year. But yeah, I think it just speaks to it's the Chiefs and then everybody else. But amongst that group of everybody else, I trust the Chargers the most.
I was just trying to pull up the numbers here because I want to hit on the Chiefs real quick before moving on in terms of like conference numbers and things like that. They are +3. This kind of speaks to the point you were making earlier. They're 3-1. Which, that's actually longer odds than the 49ers, who we talked about last week, have to win that conference.
Let me ask you this. What would the Chiefs look like if Patrick Mahomes missed the entire season?
Uh-huh.
How did the Chiefs finish? They still make the playoffs?
Probably not. Well,
Carson
the division's
Wentz
so
is
bad.
the
Carson
backup?
Wentz looked good the other day against the Lions backups or whatever they were playing.
I mean, I think they can make the playoffs. Certainly, they'd be in there.
That's got. I mean, like with
in the down to the
Matt
very
Moore
end
situation a few years ago, right? When they were kind of.
Yeah.
They won the game, right?
That's one of those ones where
Mahomes got hurt.
It would probably be very Matt Castle.
That's what. Yeah,
Patriots.
It's in that mold, right? Yeah. One team, I think, again, looking at these odds, these are DraftKings AFC conference odds. Like I said, Chiefs 3-1, Ravens +550, the second favorite. Bengals 7-1, Bills 8-1. We'll get into a couple of those at some point here. I want to zero in on the Ravens for my 3-unit play. I'm going to take them to win the AFC North at +145. Right now, according to the odds, that's more or less a two-horse race. The Bengals are the slight favorite at +140. Like I said, Ravens 145, Browns 6-1, Steelers 8-1. The institutional just consistency and continuity with the Ravens, and I know that's going to be we'll get into a little bit of it's been unsettled as a bit in this offseason, but Baltimore under John Harbaugh, at least 10 wins.
Oh, we're big on the Harbaugh.
Yeah, this is Harbaugh. At least 10 wins in 10 of the 16 seasons he's been at the helm. The Ravens are 33 games over 500 since drafting Lamar. They are one of the most consistent regular season teams in NFL history. They are one of the most inconsistent postseason teams in NFL or recent NFL history. That's okay. I'm banking on the upside here for 1 through 17. I think they have these sort of. There's something tied into like this thing that has existed for so long since Harbaugh's there, where they're like, what they had covered, however, one outright, whatever. I forget what the numbers were, like preseason games. It's just such a buttoned up unit. You want to talk about floors, like. Even if everything goes wrong for them, you're like, I could still see them going 8-9, like the worst luck possible. I just think they do such a good job of roster building. They do such a good job of drafting, developing. The depth is always through the roof. The coaching speaks for itself. There's a bit of a brain drain going on right now, especially on the defensive side with Mike McDonald gone to Seattle to take over the head coaching job. They brought in Zach Orr, which is actually kind of an interesting move. It sounds like there's a ton of energy in that defensive, side of the room. I think he's going to make them. He's going to have them playing pretty hard. They could be borderline nasty again on defense. They are a little thin at linebacker, but I think up front they're still really strong. In the secondary, I think they could be even better. Nate Wiggins out of Clemson is a guy who's gotten a lot of positive buzz so far in the preseason. I just think I trust them more than I do the Bengals, and I look at the rest of that division. I'm going to be down on the Browns, and I'm way down on the Steelers. They have a tough schedule, the Ravens do, but I just think this is a team that has pretty good mettle. They're going to be in it till the end, and like I said, I have a few questions about Joe Burrow. Obviously, not as you don't have as many questions as I do. No spoilers. I don't know about the Bengals defense. I know what I'm getting, or at least I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm getting with the Ravens. +145 feels like a good number to lay 3 units here on them winning that division. Maybe in like 2 years, this is the Bengals are looking like a powerhouse again or whatever. They finally ascend to where they could be. But there's, for me, question marks both in terms of what they've lost and what they can do to keep guys healthy. So I'll take like I said, I'll take the Ravens here.
Yeah, the Ravens, the defense scares me a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair.
Gonna be...
But and I get that. But like I said, I think they're up front and on the the outside, they're really strong. I think that's how you have success against this sort of schedule that they do. They're going to face some good quarterbacks. I think even week 1, playing Kansas City, I think they're the type of team that can knock off the Chiefs in week 1 before the Chiefs get going.
Is the AFC North a little overrated?
100%.
It feels that way.
That was a good story.
Feels like everybody sort of points to that as being one of the toughest divisions in the NFL, and I look at it and I'm like, Steelers kind of stink. They largely overachieved last year. Cleveland, I really liked Cleveland last year, but a lot of that was because they thought their defense was going to take a step forward. And what happens when you have such a big year-to-year jump like they had, it's like you're inevitably going to regress in that ensuing season. I don't think they're going to play lights-out defense for the duration of this season like they did last season. And then Cincinnati, I like Cincinnati, but again, it's a team that there are ways for them to underachieve this year as well.
Yeah.
So there are more questions, I guess, surrounding each team this year than last year or dating back a few years now, it feels like.
ESPN.com, Bill Barnwell wrote a story. I think it was just the teams most likely to take a step backward. 3 of the 4 teams were AFC North teams. So also AFC North football, you never know. The war of attrition, the weather, Lake Erie, Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania, it's tough. There's a whole lot there. I guess that if I had to pick one team, not to completely spoil our picks at the end, but I guess the Ravens are probably the team I'd look at that's most likely to unseat the Chiefs in the AFC. Would you agree with that assessment? Do you want to use that as a springboard into your next pick? Is that the team, or are you going somewhere else?
So I don't have the Ravens as my team. I guess. So I don't know if the Ravens win the division. Like you said, I like Cincinnati.
Okay.
And a lot of that is, I think I am putting a lot of stock in the quarterback, which actually is my 2-unit bet.
Okay.
I'm going to take Joe Burrow to lead the NFL regular season passing touchdowns. Wow. Last week I went yards for Dak Prescott. Yeah. Kind of gave you, what they were looking at scheduling-wise, some other variables. A lot just, I think, works in the favor of Mr. Prescott. I think I just want stock in Burrow. I feel like you and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum with him.
I like him. I just think I got to see it.
You saw it. What do you mean?
I don't know how healthy he is.
He's fine.
Okay. Fine, I didn't know you had seen the imaging.
What concerns you about the injury? Was he just going to stink?
That feels like a thing that lingers.
I don't know. I think you're buying into. I saw some reports that they're balls coming out of his hand all wrong.
NFL reporter reveals why Joe Burrow's viral glove is key. We're talking about viral gloves
coming out of his hand wrong. That is whatever.
We're talking about hands and gloves and things like that. I mean, look at Nomar was never the same after his wrist injury. That's just one of those things. It's kind of the hand, arm, wrist situation. Kind of important for a quarterback. I just want to put that out there.
All right, if I'm getting them at 12-1 or 11-1, I think it's down to 12-1 now. Behind the likes, so it's Mahomes for most regular season passing touchdowns. You get Mahomes, Prescott, C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen, and Burrow sitting there neck and neck with Brock Purdy. Look, I believe in the talent of Joe Burrow, but also the situation. I mean, have a hard time finding a better 1-2 combo than Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Running backs,
they're not really a running back.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just probably going to air it out, right? At least relative to I'm looking at some of the other quarterbacks I just mentioned. Most of them have a pretty good rushing attack. We saw Isaiah Pacheco come on down the stretch last year. Dallas is kind of Joe Mixon goes to Houston. I think Buffalo's sort of in this stage now. I think they're going to start leaning on the ground game a little bit more. And then obviously San Francisco, they're,
I don't think Buffalo's going to.
You don't think what?
Buffalo's going to run the ball. It's just.
You don't?
I think they're going to try to. They're just so bad at it. It's just. Right. That was just one thing. It's the Bills drive me nuts as a team that should run the ball a lot more. Or
I think they started to towards the end of last year.
They should play a certain kind of way. They don't lead into the Buffalo of it all. That's just the thing that
I agree with that.
Not to derail your take. Sorry.
No, I got nothing else really. I mean, I do think the offensive line will be better. I mean, it has to be better than last year or the last couple of years. Defensively, I really like them up front and on the back end. Got a couple guys. So I'm kind of mixing in my. This is why
I was gonna say
I'm mixing in my Joe Burrow and my. Well, you said the team to knock off the Chiefs in the AFC.
The defensive line going to catch some touchdowns from Joe Burrow.
Well, you're jumping in with that ain't Buffalo football. Like now you're throwing me all off the rails. So yeah, whatever. Joe Burrow, regular season touchdowns. Bengals like them to win the AFC, and yeah,
Anthony Munoz coming out of retirement.
Yeah. What else you got on that viral glove?
Chris Collinsworth catching touchdowns.
You got your tinfoil hat on.
Chad Ochocinco
dissecting all the equipment that
I just was looking for an update, and literally the first thing that came up was something about a viral glove. So that doesn't bode well. Or maybe it's the greatest thing in the world. I don't know. Is there something like out of Mario? I don't know. Like he's throwing.
I don't concern myself with those conspiracies.
Throwing fireballs around all of a sudden. You found a magic flower. Yeah, I don't know. It's
what do you got? What's your
I look forward to the AFC North. My 2 units is on the other end of the spectrum. We're talking about teams contending to win the AFC. I don't think the Patriots are going to contend to win the AFC.
Yeah, probably not.
I will give you one take that there's like a bright side or a potential bright side for the Patriots. I don't think it's going in the direction. I think they're going to stink. I have them as the last remaining winless team, 5-1 at FanDuel. I think they're the favorite. I think the second favorite is like Tennessee, and then obviously who else? Carolina. I think 5-1. I'll take the Patriots for a litany of reasons. The first being that they are going to stink. I think it was weird. It felt like the sky was absolutely falling like 6 days ago, going into their second preseason game, and then Drake May has one or two nice drives, throws a ball that gets dropped, and all of a sudden, actually, maybe he could start, and maybe they won't be so bad. But you look at their schedule. You talk about a sharp football analysis. They have the second hardest schedule in the NFL this season by whatever metrics he uses. I think it's mostly like win totals and things like that of opponents. But the question here is like, when do you get your first win? So last remaining winless team. Leading up to the Week 11 bye, this is how they start their season. At Cincinnati, home Seattle, at the Jets on a Thursday night, at San Francisco, home against the Dolphins, home against the Texans, Jacksonville in London, at Tennessee. That one could be for all the marbles there. That could be 2-0-5 or 0-6 teams. At Chicago, home Rams, at Miami, Indy, bye. I look at like those first 5 or 6 games, basically going into that Tennessee game with a London game mixed in there, a couple of road games, including a Thursday night game. Your home games are against Miami, Houston, Seattle. They could, I guess, maybe clip, and then it blows up there. But I'll take my chances. I'm fading them pretty much across the board for the first couple months until I see reason to believe otherwise. I also think there's just like not a team in the NFL that has more questions about his talent level. Maybe 2 months from now, like Jalen Polk is a front runner for Rookie of the Year. Christian Gonzalez has answered all the questions about his injury and his poor performance in camp. Jerod Mayo is the second coming of D'Amico Ryan. Whatever. I just like, even if you want to compare him to Tennessee, for example, like at least there's some top end talent there. I think Carolina does stink. The Panthers might be the problem here, but I just, if you want to even dissect even more into that, like the Panthers at least play the Raiders, the Bears, and the Commanders in the first 7 weeks. So I think that's a bigger toss-up than anything the Patriots have in those first few weeks. So I think we're going to be having some difficult conversations. And then even then, like if they're 0-4, 0-5, they could turn it over to Drake May, and I don't think that necessarily fixes anything either. So I think it's going to be a difficult season.
I was going to say, you said on the heels of that second preseason game, it feels like there's a little more just like optimism, I guess, surrounding this team, and like I feel the total opposite. I feel worse about the Patriots now than I did about a week ago.
Well, I think that I'm not going to get on people for feeling optimistic about the future, but like when we're talking the future with them, it's like 25 and beyond.
Exactly, yeah. I think as it relates to this year, I'm feeling worse and worse. It feels like by the week, because like the struggles of Jacoby Brissett equally, and in training camp in the preseason
against twos.
Yeah, and I don't think that offensive line is gonna fix itself. That is a persistent problem. I mean, look, you trade away your best player.
I was just about to say the defense is overrated at this point too. Well, maybe not. I think we're probably adjusting on the fly, but Judon and Barmore 2 months ago, as opposed to now, is huge.
2 months ago, I thought this was a team that I don't want to say they're going to make noise, but they were going to be a big pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I could see a world where maybe they find their way to 6-7 wins, and it looks better. They're plucky. And
like you said, they're just a pain in the ass
because Brissett's taking care of the ball, and the defense. I don't think you can read too much into last season really with anything when it comes to the Patriots. I mean, the coaching change alone, right?
Yeah,
and
you can't apply it to this year.
But
so.
I mean, from about week 10 on, they were among probably the top 3 defenses in football. They were really good towards the tail end of last season, and it wasn't necessarily because they were forcing turnovers or doing anything that's unsustainable. They were just good. And a lot of time they were being dealt a crummy hand too with some of the field positions. So there's a world where the defense is good and the offense just had to be respectable. But like you said, Judon's gone, Barmore's gone, Gonzalez hasn't looked like what everybody thought Christian Gonzalez was going to look like.
The Gonzalez thing in camp and preseason has been weird.
There's just I don't know. The Gerard Mayo tenure is not off to a great start.
Good call by you. Number 1 defense by EPA from week 10 on last year.
They were good.
And would they go in those games?
It was good. And I think if you look, a lot of that, the opponent's drive wherever they were starting was insane. It was historically bad. They were put in bad spots, and they were still very respectable. So, but again, you had Bill Belichick more or less overseeing that defense.
Yeah.
What does that look like this year? Can you continue any of that into this year? I don't know.
Also helped you were playing the Colts, Giants, Chargers, Steelers, Chiefs, Broncos, Bills, Jets. But still, that's a thing I'm borderline out on until I see it otherwise, that the defense might not actually be that good. They lost some other guys too. It's just, and I also think there's maybe maybe that's overstated a little bit. I was going to say a bit of a drop off from guys who benefited from playing alongside Judon, but he was gone for a good portion of last year, so maybe that's overthinking. What do you think about the AFC East?
I was just going to ask you that. I think of all the divisions, maybe in football, this is the hardest one for me to get a read on.
One team that's going to suck. Everybody else can win the division.
Yep.
It's a very easy case to make for all 3 of them.
Was maybe the case before last season. I guess Buffalo was declared
that's
number
a good point.
1. But before Rodgers went down, I think there was a strong case to be made for the Jets, and the Dolphins are always kind of in there.
Dolphins you probably wanted to see a little bit. Then Tua goes out, stays healthy, leads the league in passing yards last year.
The thing is, none of these teams might look anything like last year. I know I just mentioned that about the Patriots, but the same applies to all 3 other teams. Buffalo underwent a pretty significant overhaul on the defensive side.
Yeah.
Same with Miami. They've had some pieces coming and going.
I like what they did in the offseason.
I think Miami's probably my pick as of right now.
Yeah. I guess the reservation there is health, because the health has been, it's like a mini San Francisco thing, which I guess isn't a huge surprise given. Can we make a link there? I'm these guys are getting dudes hurt, but Tua's always a concern. Tyreek Hill was last year, was banged up. Achane was never healthy. It felt like this is maybe just me airing some fantasy football grievances now.
Sounds like it.
But there is that. They lost Christian Wilkins, so but
they brought in guys that there's just very similar parts coming and going. Buffalo's the one that interests me because they're going there's a pretty significant changes, guys that have been there for a while on the defensive side, which that was always kind of the thing with Buffalo. Is you have basically the same defense that has returned year over year, and this is the first time in a while that it feels like that's not the case. But maybe that's a good thing. I think a lot of those guys are starting to age out anyways, so maybe it's kind of like we talked about with the Chargers. Maybe the change is for the better. You're getting rid of some of these guys with name recognition, but you're bringing in better, younger players, cheaper players who are going to fit into a long-term core here.
Yeah.
And then maybe that's where you see the identity change on the offensive side. Run the ball a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just saying.
They do seem kind of without an identity at various times.
They're
of
tough
this,
to
like
pin
Josh
down right
Allen,
now.
McDermott era. One thing whether it's stuff we're writing for NESN.com, meetings we're having about NFL stuff, general discussions in the office about football, like the Jets and we did our quarterback rankings a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if the words Aaron Rodgers were said. And I think that's largely fair, but there's a very good chance we look like complete jackasses if the guy comes out and plays as well as he's capable of. For me, it's just like I always go back, or I keep going back to 22?
Yeah.
His last season in Green Bay. And I know he had a broken thumb or whatever, but he just didn't play well. And that was 2 years ago now. He's an old dude, like coming off of a tough injury. But
that's an injury I'm concerned about.
Okay.
You know, when you're that age versus how old Joe Burrow is.
Got to get a magic glove or a viral glove.
A magic boot or something. Maybe then I'd feel a little bit better about them.
Jets plus 180. So Jets are favored with the Bills. This seems backwards. So Jets plus 180, Bills plus 180, Dolphins 2-1 at DraftKings. If I were making that, I would be like, I think it's actually Dolphins and Bills, and then the Jets a couple, 20 cents behind that. You're kind of picking nits at that point. So kind of speaks to what we were just talking about. And then in terms of the conference, those teams are the Bills are 8-1, Jets 11-1, Dolphins 11-1. All right, let's get into our 1 unit plays here. We'll kind of tie up this. Oh wait, no, I did want to hit on one real thing. Go back to the Patriots. This is something I've kind of ruminated on for a while. Could they be the 2023 Houston Texans?
No.
If we simulate the season 100 times, how many times could that happen?
No, because it's
the parallels are undeniable, right? Like,
Drake May's not going to start week 1, and
nobody expected CJ Stroud to be what he was last year, though, either.
Yeah,
I'm trying to give you some optimism here. Also, CJ Stroud, it's probably not going to happen. But like I said, if you simulate 100 times,
I think
rookie quarterback, rookie coach, stud on the defensive side. He's young. Receivers come out of nowhere. Like the ingredients are there. You're just making like you're making a lesser version. Maybe it's like a sugar-free version of that same recipe.
I think
it's not going to taste very good.
That was the biggest thing going into the draft, though. It's like, can they replicate what the Texans were able to do? I mean, the Texans also had the benefit of drafting not only C.J. Stroud, but a guy I'm going to get to in a second here.
Yeah.
And Willie Anderson, and like you kind of got you got a cornerstone on each side of the ball. Like that's a pretty big haul there. I think
you could squint hard enough and say Christian Gonzalez.
I think the division plays into it too.
Yeah.
I think last year.
That's a good point.
Like I do think I will say I think the AFC South is trending in the right direction. Like I think that division is. We want to talk about the North falling off a little bit. I think the South might be coming on. Yeah,
the South will rise again.
It will.
I didn't know the Civil War is breaking out all of a sudden. North trending down. I'll take this. Is, version of the spread from 1861.
But
3-unit play.
It was a situation last year. I mean that division was what it was last year.
Yeah.
I think it'll be better this year. But yeah, I don't know. It's just there are too many holes in the Patriots roster.
I give it a 2% chance. Yeah, it's like Jalen Polk is Nico Collins. I think the division thing is a legit point. That's a good point. So, what's your one?
Yeah, I think Nico Collins is way better. Twice the receiver that anybody in the Patriots receiver room is.
Javon Baker would disagree, but that's neither here nor there. That's his name, right? Did I just make that up?
Jalen Polk, Javon Baker.
I got him right.
Yeah.
We're on a roll.
Yeah.
I've done my research.
But these guys, I mean, the way they draft wideouts, these could all just be guys, you know?
That's a fair point.
We'll see.
Elliot Wolf knows what he's talking about, though. 1 unit play.
Willie Anderson. I just mentioned him. Houston Texans. I got him Defensive Player of the Year. 40-1.
I almost
FanDuel.
I almost went and bet this after you sent it to me.
So I don't know if you've looked, but he's 20-1 at DraftKings, 40-1 at FanDuel.
Okay,
that right there tells me I'm getting some serious value here, and it also speaks to the importance of shopping around when it comes to the futures market, especially when it comes to like awards and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
FanDuel trails 10 players on the betting board, including his new teammate, Danielle Hunter.
Come on.
Trails 6 players on the board at DraftKings. This is the guy last year, defensive rookie of the year. So basically you're betting on natural progression, right? Like he's just going to take another step forward this year. Highest grade among rookie edge defenders on Pro Football Focus. Most QB pressures, highest pressure rate among rookie defenders, edge defenders. Like I think last year I kind of took a similar approach with Aiden Hutchinson and thinking like maybe he might just follow that same trajectory. The problem was that he didn't really have anybody on the other side of that defense to pressure the quarterback. I don't think Will Anderson runs into that problem. Just looking at the schedule, for what I was just saying about the division, if there are flaws in each of those teams, offensive line seems to be a pretty common theme. You also play the Patriots, offensive line issues there. They got matchups against Chicago and Minnesota out of the
They play the Bengals?
I don't know if they play the Bengals. I'll have to pull it
Burrow
up.
throws for 10 touchdowns against them, you might be in trouble.
Well, no, because the Cincinnati offensive line will probably give up about 6 sacks. So Burrow will get sacked 6 times by Will Anderson, but throw 5 touchdowns in 450 yards. But they do play a lot of young quarterbacks, which I think will lend itself to probably some sacks too, maybe getting into some trouble there. So I think with him, it's good value. It's a unit that's trending in the right direction, and I think you're going to see more splash plays from him this year, which will probably impact the mind of the voters somehow. Betting on awards is always weird because it's like you have to build in like the narrative component too,
course.
Which is like why I don't want to keep going back to it, but like that Lamar Jackson MVP at 15-1, it's like this is a guy who has won it before, and also for some of the skepticism I have about Baltimore, it's like if he overcomes that, like there's a nice little narrative built in too. So
that's fair.
But 4-1, Will Anderson, Defensive Player of the Year.
I'm locked out of my FanDuel account, so you must be listening.
You're probably saving yourself money.
Yeah. All right. Will Anderson, as you mentioned, Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. I am going to make an Offensive Rookie of the Year bet here for my final 1-unit play. I like Xavier Worthy to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, 19-1 at FanDuel. Chiefs, this is like, we talk about the Bills and their identity crisis. Didn't they traded down so the Chiefs could come up and get Worthy, who has undeniable raw traits as a receiver. He ran the fastest 40-yard dash in combine history. I think it's pretty obvious they hope that he can be what Tyreek Hill was for them for so long. I was reading, just kind of Googling around, fantasypros.com had a story talking about him as like a big draft pick for fantasy, and they called him Deshaun Jackson 2.0, which is probably a pretty apt comparison, a better comparison than even
a more
Tyreek Hill.
Frustrating fantasy player ever, though.
I know. That's
boom or bust as it gets.
That kind of actually set the light bulb off in my head, though. So he was a punt returner at Texas too. I got to imagine they're going to use him in the kicking game this year. Is he kind of one of those guys who maybe benefits from the new kickoff rules, and all of a sudden, he takes 2 or 3 of these to the house, changes a couple of games? That's talk about narratives, talk about highlights, that gets going there. I think that there's questions about like whether he's the next Devin Hester instead, and that's something that kind of gets tied in there. I think the obvious cliche thing when you're talking about the Chiefs and offensive weapons is what can Andy Reid do with this guy? He's getting run with the ones. I think of the 24 snaps that he could have played with Mahomes, he played 19 so far in the preseason. I think he's got at least one handoff, so they're using him in different ways. I think they're gonna try to get him the ball in space. I think there's some talk about teams doing everything they can to take away the deep ball from the Chiefs, which makes sense. So there's going to be some underneath stuff. I think they're going to find ways to get him in space and just let him go. And the guy who runs like a 4.240 is going to have some opportunity to do some damage. I think also the Chiefs have been historically kind of reticent to play young players, especially skilled players on offense. They might not have a choice this year. We kind of talk about like how last year was, the 2006 version of Brady that was what Mahomes was last year, was just no receivers. Not a whole lot has changed there. They got Hollywood Brown, but he's hurt, and I think he's the only guy who's maybe questionable to start the season. So I think he's going to have plenty of run right away. He's going to have opportunities to get out there and make plays. And also the history. historical trends of the offensive rookie of the year. 2 of the last 3 were wide receivers. You had Garrett Wilson and Jamar Chase. And then last season, Puka Nacua finished second in voting. So it's not like the MVP where it's just a slam dunk quarterback driven award. I think the idea that quarterbacks kind of take a while to get up to speed can maybe hurt them. The problem is like if they are good, they run away with the award. So there are at least 2 options up top with Williams and Daniels who could run away with this. But if it doesn't go to one of the quarterbacks, I think Worthy is a worthy choice for this award. There is part of me though. It's like, is this just preseason hype where a guy runs really fast and he looks great at the combine, looks good in shorts, and just makes one play in the preseason where all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, and then he just doesn't ever kind of really put it together in that first year.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it just seems like there's a ton of opportunity there. Guys can be playing in a lot of big games, narratives, things like that are on his side. So I think there's a chance that he could be a real game wrecker.
It's weird. It's like, I think with him, I think the talent's like you've seen it in the preseason. Like you're like, wow, this kid's pretty good. Like he's obviously fast, but like he pops a little bit when you watch him. I don't know. I watched a little bit of their game against the Lions.
I literally watched like 2 snaps and he should have been called for a false start, didn't, and like made like a 16-yard catch or something. I was like, all right, let's go. But write that down.
With him, it's just, I think, a matter of whether like the counting stats are going to be there. Are they going to spread 100%. The ball around too much? But
to whom though? Like,
I don't know. Rice, I don't know if he's going to end up being suspended at all. But like Kelsey's still there. And,
well, like if Worthy makes the most of his opportunities early, this number is going to fall.
Yeah.
But like if he struggles at all early and it's like falls out of favor, he's going to be 55-1 by the end of September, and I'd be like, well, that was dumb. So
Caleb Williams plus 120 favorite to win offensive rookie of the year.
Because
what is even the point?
Preseason, man. Like that's such a we don't have a whole lot of other AFC talk. We're pretty much done here. Have you watched any of Caleb Williams? Not to wade into those waters. I guess it's like impressive, but I just am I growing up? I don't want to get too carried away by any sort of preseason stuff, especially at the quarterback.
I mean, it's basically the stuff you've seen from him. Yeah, it's impressive, but it's really no different than what he was doing in college.
Yeah,
and until it happens in the regular season,
that's what I think is like the running around doesn't feel sustainable.
Yeah, it's much easier to run around when you're playing
guys who aren't going to be on the street, So I don't want to dump on the Bears all the time. Sounds like Carolyn's having a rough enough day, so we don't want to.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't want to dig in too
Although
much.
I was looking at like some stock in Rome Odunze, whether there was like a way to bet him. But the problem is there's a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago right now, and I don't know if like, right away he becomes.
If Rome Odunze is a Rookie of the Year candidate, is that what you're saying for that award?
No, I would lean more towards like.
I was going to say
receiving yards leader.
Because like if he's anywhere near that conversation, it's going to go to Williams, right? Unless he gets hurt.
I would err more on like leaders among rookie receivers or something, where like you're getting him at a favorable number relative to Worthy, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison. Like Marvin Harrison is the guy that I think is most apt of the receivers to win either an award or lead like every statistical category. But Odunze does feel like if he builds that connection with Caleb Williams early, like maybe that becomes the Burrow Chase from a few years ago or something. And they just kind of grow together. Yeah. But again, like they added Keenan Allen, they got DJ Moore, so there's a lot to, there's only so many to go around, so many passes to go around in Chicago. So I don't know if he gets there this year. But it was something that initially it piqued my interest.
I guess, I'm just looking at offensive rookie of the year. Bo Nix 10-1. It's what a hard thing a hard award to kind of figure out.
I think Jaden Daniels at 6-1 is reasonable.
Where's that? At FanDuel?
Yeah,
he's 475 at DraftKings, so that's a good one.
6-1. I think the Commanders might actually be better than people are giving credit for. I think it's gonna look much better. I think I touched on this last week. Like they might not win a ton of games, but I think they're going to be in a lot of games. And I think they're going to take advantage of that division being maybe weaker than it has been in the last few years. So that would be where my attention immediately goes.
Brock Bowers.
Not to turn this back into the NFC version of the spread.
Brock Bowers 50-1. I think he's hurt though, and they have no quarterbacks. Just Bad team.
All set with that.
Sam Hartman, 250 to 1.
What's your So what's your AFC playoff picture look like? Do you know like who division winners, wild cards, and you like the Ravens coming out? Do you think the Ravens ultimately take down the Chiefs, or was that just more of
I think the Chiefs are going to win the conference. I hate to, you know what I mean? Like,
I think there's a chance that the Chiefs are like they lose 2 games maybe.
Wow.
Like I think there's a chance they roll through the AFC.
What is, I'm trying to think of another way to pose any of these questions. Like, most surprising.
Like, last season was like the worst version of the Chiefs, and they won the Super Bowl.
It didn't get a whole lot better on the offensive side, unless Worthy is sick, right?
But I'm saying, like, they're not going to commit the same amount of turnovers. They're not going to drop the same amount of passes. Like, that was like an ungodly amount of drop passes last year. I think if you look at like fumble luck and all those types of metrics, like they were pretty unlucky in that regard too. So for the whole season, I think there's a pretty significant. It's weird to sit here and be like, oh, the Chiefs are going to be better than last year when you win the Super Bowl. But like regular season, I think they might be better.
Yeah, I think I've got like Dolphins, Ravens, Bengals, Chiefs, Texans, and like I don't know, like. The AFC's, like, I could see Buffalo as being my team that falls off this year. That's something I've got kind of bookmarked or page.
All right.
Earmarked.
I got, real quick, my division winners. I'm going to go Dolphins, Texans, Bengals, Chiefs, Wild Cards. I'll go Bills, Colts. Either the Colts or the Jaguars. That's kind of a toss-up in that division. Chargers. I will plant my flag in that ground. The Chargers get into the playoffs this year, and then I'm taking the Bengals.
I think the Colts are going to be an interesting discussion point for us as the season goes on. So
I think we're at the Colts last year. I sent you my most bet teams on FanDuel, and I think it was the Colts.
So who's winning the conference?
Bengals.
I got the Chiefs. All right, let's get out of here. Enjoy your vacation, Ricky. We will when we meet again in this very room. It'll be week 1 of the NFL season.
Talk about actual games.
Yeah, I look forward to that. So that's Ricky. I'm Mike. This is A Spread. Thanks for joining us. See you again next week. Goodbye.